Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ask Christa, the place where you can ask questions about how to work through business challenges and workplace issues. I'm Christa Dhimo, and today's question is, what advice do you have for starting a conversation about raising my freelance rates, and how can I not chicken out from having it? This is a double-barrel question, which means there are two different, even if related, concepts put together into one question. So I'm going to address them in two parts. But first, let's agree on how we're framing the questions because both have one thing in common: raising your business rates. And that is a business decision, not a personal one. Even if you are a solopreneur, and especially if you consider yourself a freelancer, the conversation starts with what you offer, and that's about your business. The first question is how to start the conversation about raising your rates, and that's a great way to begin, thinking about starting the conversation. Raising your rates is a change, and you and your client will need some time to transition. You can learn more from episode 4, Making Change a Superpower, a little plug there. I'm saying you'll need the transition time too because most solopreneurs and freelancers get their work through their relationships and word of mouth, and any change in how you do business will feel disruptive, even when raising your rates, or perhaps especially when raising your rates, because you don't take your clients for granted. At the same time, you can't take yourself for granted either. As always, the first step is about your mindset. How do you think about raising your rates? Are you seeing this as a raise, like how you would if you were a full-time employee? Or are you seeing this as raising your rates? They may have similar outcomes, but they are different. But as a freelancer, you're not an employee per se, and your client isn't your boss. And your business decisions will be based on the totality of what it takes to run a business. Just because you're freelancing as a solopreneur doesn't mean you're not a business. Your rates are based on the impact you make or the value you bring and how you keep up your momentum. It's also based on how you're growing, how you're expanding to offer more and more, and also what the market rates are. The market shifts. And you need fair rates, right? So when I'm winking about you being a business, I want you to change your mindset. You are a business, and this is a business decision. So start here. You may be asking how to start the discussion about raising your rates, but it might feel more comfortable to start a discussion about adjusting your rates. And the way you frame it can relieve some of the strain of money talk. Adjusting your rates is a business decision based on different factors so that you can continue providing the products and services you provide to your clients. Increased rates enables development and growth back into your business. Just because it's only you doesn't mean you don't deliver like a full team. You probably do deliver like a full team, but you're a party of one, and that leads me to my second point. After you change your mindset, know your worth so you can strengthen that mindset and be prepared to have an evidence-based discussion about, first, what you deliver, how you deliver it. Do you deliver and make your clients' life easier too? Are you always slightly ahead of or anticipating their needs? Are you that team member who offers value beyond the deliverables? And 2, since you began working with them, what have you learned? How have you grown that has established a better service that you provide to them? New skills and experiences you're bringing to them. If you didn't know them today, they were brand new, what would you charge them versus what you began charging them? All of those points showcase the value you bring to your client and the level from which you work. And this is not to argue or defend your position in preparation for starting the discussion. On the contrary, it's so you can have a positive discussion about what you love to do, how you love to do it, and how much you want to continue providing the service or products to your clients that you do today. It also prepares you from within to feel more confident and clear on what you're worth. So focus and research on what you're worth and the value you bring and make it evidence-based. And speaking of your value, the last piece is doing some homework to learn. What are others charging for what you do? Then the hard part, or what might feel harder, and that's the courage to start the discussion, which is the second part of the question, the how do I keep myself from chickening out part of the question. And that starts with preparation. So I'm going to focus on the preparation before I actually get into how you can keep yourself from chickening out. Now, as with all good negotiations, preparation is key. It's equally important to know what you're willing to walk away from and how urgent the new rates are. That matters a lot because the best changes are transformative and take the right amount of time to transition. So I want you to be strategic as you start talking about your rate adjustments because that right amount of time depends on a variety of things. The relationship, your needs, what you're willing to walk away from, what you have ahead of you, a whole host of things. I also want you to think about your current client portfolio and your future client portfolio because as you grow your business and as you develop yourself, your portfolio will change, or at least it should change and evolve. So first, know your clients, especially as a freelancer. There will be clients you outgrow over time, clients who appreciate your lower rates and need the work that might come along with lower rates, but cannot afford or perhaps do not want to pay for adjusted rates because they feel they do not need the better service or product. You probably know who those clients are already, and those are the ones that make for a difficult discussion because you know they aren't interested in the value, they're interested in the price point. And that's good to know. It might feel painful, but it's good information to have, and we'll get into that a bit later. This is when the timing or the urgency comes in. Rate adjustments shouldn't feel urgent. And if they do, it's time to think longer term about your freelancing and your growth. The resources in this segment is specific to freelancers and will help you. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. Meanwhile, if you want to have an effective negotiation, you cannot start from a place of urgency. Time will force your hand. You need to start from a place of transition where the negotiations determine how your current state will shift into a future state, and that shifting can often be done in a few ways. You can undergo some preemptive conditioning. The change is coming, but in a while. And then you repeat that the change is coming, but in a while. We have time to get used to the idea. Perhaps you start having the discussion about rate adjustments in March for the next January increase. Another option is to honor certain rates for current clients, but any new projects will be priced at your new rate. This approach is another way to ease into the transition to new rates without you compromising on the rate increase you deserve as part of your preparation. Perhaps you keep certain clients at the same rate no matter what, but you let them know that you are raising your rates for all new clients, thus signaling that you have reevaluated your worth and are advancing your work too. Existing clients will remain as is, but at some point in the future, or with a renewed contract in the future, you will appreciate a new rate discussion, and then you just leave it at that. Then, of course, as the last part of your preparation begins, practice for the talk. How you start talking sets a tone, and that tone must be what works best for you. Not your peers, not your business coach, not your spouse or all other relatives, not the expert down the street, not the person who did this thousands of times, but for you. Those who know me know I'm a big believer in scripting, and what you will say, how you will say it, or what you'll write and how you'll write it related to your script matters. I want you to start your draft messy and big. It's about getting the facts out, getting everything you want to say out, getting the mess out of your head. It should not feel polished and perfect. It should be, in a perfect world, this is what I'd say and this is how I'd say it. From there, you start the drafting work. From there, you polish your draft so it's concise, honest and professional, starting with the value you place on your relationship, your intention to adjust your rates based on the market and growth, or need to work with a sustainable pricing model, the time frame for the rate adjustment, and that the purpose of talking about it now is to get started with the discussion. Then practice, 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 practice. Just like everything else that is new, practice will reduce the fears of uncertainties and doubts and failure, or perhaps the certainties you do have, that you will chicken out, that you'll freeze up halfway through, that you'll decide to compromise down just as you conclude, that you'll be too easily talked out of a rate adjustment. The practice is to help with that. Maybe you know exactly how some clients will react. They'll say no, or they will respond as though they're questioning whether your service is of higher value now than before, or any other possibility of making this more personal. But remember, it's a business decision. Just because you're a party of one doesn't mean you aren't a business. Here's some things you can say. I appreciate the work we've been able to do together and the way in which I have made an impact through the initiative that enabled your growth by 20%. I also love the ways I led your new branding work that created and improved clarity. It's my pleasure to support clients like you to grow the scope of your client base and your revenues. As part of my routine business review, and in light of the increased value I bring, as well as evolving market conditions, I am in the process of reviewing my pricing such that it reflects the value I provide and supports sustainability for my services so I can continue to provide the service I provide. And so I will be adjusting my rates over the next few months or the next contracting cycle, or whatever time frame is best for you and most comfortable for you and your clients. You could say, I'm in the process of adjusting my rates over the next few timeline to include a certain percentage increase, to include a 5% increase, which is in alignment with inflation as well as the market rates. A certain price point increase for prices or for projects like these, they will now be this per hour, or this scope of deliverable will now be this instead. And then you say, this enables me to align my pricing with the value and depth of my service, support my growth, and keep up with market competitiveness and other conditions. And if it feels more comfortable to start with an introductory email, something that says, I would love the opportunity to set up a meeting in the next 2 to 3 weeks to talk about a price adjustment I'm in the process of rolling out or phasing into. And then you highlight some of the points I just talked about in your email. This is especially important if you have a lot of clients. I would say more than maybe 4 or 5 clients. It's just going to be more efficient, and it just sets the tone and it gets that preemptive conditioning moving so that the time and the way that you space out all of these discussions is a little bit easier to manage for you. Now, to note, if you own a subscription service, email will be key, but you may want to consider a more personal touch to also include a video embedded in that email also. There's a lot of information and resources about this, so I'm tying this in with a more personal approach based on the work that I do and based on the brand that I am providing to all of you, my followers here. And a few additional tips as you prepare. Remember, practice, practice, practice. Preparation is key. First, make a rule that you will not apologize for adjusting your rates. Just don't. You are not creating or causing a difficult situation for your clients, and you're not being offensive simply because you're raising your rates. Remember, this is about starting the discussion and letting your clients know you're raising your rates. After that, get used to space and silence. Meaning, it's not up to you to fill in any empty air between you and your client if you start the discussion and your client does not respond or react immediately. If you feel there's an awkward pause, or if you are sending it by email and there's a few days delay, you can address that easily by saying or responding with something like, I appreciate you listening, how about we connect next week to continue talking about this? I'm starting these conversations with my clients now so that we have enough time to review what works best for both of us as I adjust my rates. Also prepare for redirects on how to get your work done if a client cannot afford your rate adjustment in a monetary amount, or if you just have the sense that they're just not good with change. You can always raise your rates but reduce your scope, thus allowing you to take on another client at your adjusted rate. You're still realigning to your value. You can reduce the amount of work you do and keep the rate you have if that's what's best for you and best for your client, and that's what feels good for you. You can also offer what's called a transition rate, where you raise by a percentage of the total raise for a certain amount of time. So maybe for the next 6 months, you will adjust the rate by 50%, and then the new rate will kick in. But just don't go too long, because you're going to get used to the 50% just as much as your client does. Plus, you've done your homework. You know what you're worth. It's also important to know how you respond to silence, as I was just talking about, and jumping in for the sake of filling up space isn't the way to respond. So again, give them space to absorb and consider their response, and give yourself a little bit of space. Try to tamper down some of that urgency you might have to fill that in. Last note on preparation: resist the urge to continue explaining your rate adjustment unless they ask questions. Again, this is where the practice comes in. You must also assure you are not defending or justifying your rate adjustment. You've already provided the information. You've let them know why this adjustment is coming to play. If you're offering a service, and as your service grows and develops and improves and gets better, it's important to remember you should continue to enable and help your clients grow and develop and expand also. I put in that little extra about service because those of us who provide a service, oftentimes we are providing parts of ourselves, and that's really hard to think about in monetized amounts. But you will need to adjust your rates. The better you get, the better your clients get. And that means an adjustment is appropriate. Now, chickening out, which if you're listening or watching from outside the United States, that means you don't have the guts to follow through with starting the discussion. You don't have the guts to do what it is that you want to do. You chicken out. And as always, it's important to know you're not alone in that. It is intimidating to be in a position where you are a source of revenue and your client, and your client is a source of revenue for you. And they can turn you down for adjusting your rates. Again, it's a business decision. And if they're saying no to your rate adjustment, then they're saying no to your continued product or service, and you have to be okay with that. It's also when the timing of your preparation will help the most, especially with certain demographics who, based on studies and research, tend to undersell themselves from the beginning. Women, people of color, different minorities, early stage career people, later stage career people. Or if you're new to freelancing, you usually undersell in the first 1 to 2 years. And again, all of that is backed by evidence. So be aware of it and prepare. Practice. The practice will take the chill out of the air, which is typically why people chicken out. It's just so uncomfortable. But it will feel less confrontational with practice. Get yourself an accountability buddy. Ask them to take on different personas and work through responses that you're most afraid of or most intimidated by. The more you experience, the more prepared you will feel, and the more desensitized you will become over what could feel daunting and scary, which are the reasons why people chicken out. You may be surprised how easy it is to do all of this, especially if you feel you have a mutually respectful relationship with your client. So it is also important to keep in mind that some clients will probably say, finally, you know your worth. I'm happy to pay you more for what you do. But remember, you've done your homework. So that's not the time to wonder or sit and reject your own homework. Maybe I should have charged more. That was much easier than I thought it was. This is where I said you got to practice and be honest. You know your worth. If your client says, finally, I'm happy to pay for that, take it. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate this relationship that we have together. No matter the response, the last piece related to your courage is to do this reframing, and it's about the objective. This isn't to get them to agree to your rate increase. It's about what this question asked, starting the conversation. This is about opening up the discussion, and it's about adjusting your rates. So your goal isn't to immediately win them over to a rate increase. Your goal is to start the discussion, reiterate and establish your worth, communicate that worth in the context of your market and competition, why you do it better than anyone else, and explain what a rate adjustment will do for them too, such as enable you to continue working with them in a way that assures you can sustain the work you do for them. I have a few great resources for you. I found this resource for freelancers called Moxie. Now, if that's a new word for you, or if you think of a soda when you think of Moxie, the meaning is a courageous, zippy, determined personality trait. Christa has a lot of Moxie. This site is for freelancers, and I've listed for you an article that talks about increasing your rates, and it's excellent. The other is the WP Minute, where you'll hear directly from a freelancer who will reinforce some of what I've said here about rate adjustments, not being personal, being about the business, the importance of a plan, and how you prepare. Consider this as a resource to hear directly from a freelancer, not just me. It's on YouTube, but it's a listening segment. The last resource is watching and listening a YouTube video from the future, where you can learn about that resist to urge to defend and justify I talked about earlier. The host, Christa Dhimo, walks through 2 strategies to avoid justifying your prices. It's a broader view about talking about pricing overall, but one I think that is very important for freelancers to learn about. Again, you'll hear a lot of what I've mentioned here too. And by the way, I learned this because of years of study in this arena, oscillating between full-time employment for a company and my own employment as a consultant and as an advisor. It's not about what you do, it's more about how you do it and how you feel on the inside about it. Since this segment's question is more about the how-tos of business challenges and workplace issues, I'm offering the how-to resources. But if you're looking for more evidence-based studies and papers, I have listed a Google search in the show notes also. My search is evidence-based negotiation skills. You will see a listing of various resources from a master class to essential negotiation skills across the web to different classes you can take, papers you can read, and other resources. I wish we all learned about negotiation skills when we were really young. It's the basis of being more collaborative and cooperative, but also the basis of feeling more comfortable when you're feeling like you have to confront something, or while creating boundaries and establishing your worth, which is a lot of what raising your rates is about when you're a freelancer. So there it is. It's a long one, but you got a twofer this time. 2 questions in one, 2 answers in one. I hope this resonates with a lot of you. And not just from a freelancing perspective, but from instances with a business challenge or workplace issue. Anytime you have to talk about the value you bring and feeling you're paid fairly. That in and of itself is a topic. As always, keep sending in your questions and I will keep up. I will also post more frequently soon. Head over to my website, askchrista.com. That's Christa with a CH to submit your question. And while you're there, sign up for the weekly newsletter too. You'll receive a free issue of the Survivor's Guide to Business Challenges and Workplace Issues. Then the weekly newsletter, of course, which I issue on Sundays, so you have a few tips, boosters, and some comic relief to prep you for the work week. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and thank you for your support. And remember, if you have a business challenge or workplace issue, ask Christa.